are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday. As always, we have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. Once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get right into what we are going to talk about on the show today. So we'll start off the show. We'll talk about the Packers and how they've kind of turned it around recently. They've been playing a lot better. They're 5-6 now. They're kind of back in the conversation of maybe getting one of those wild card spots in the NFC. So we'll talk about that. They got a big game coming up on Sunday night actually, against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's a home game. So obviously we'll dive into that more tomorrow, of course, when we go over all the games for the weekend. But yeah, that's what we'll talk about to start off the show. Then the second part of the show, we'll actually talk about the former Packers quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, as he was cleared to practice, and that opens up the window for him to be activated and maybe come back and play. Now, I know we've talked about him, at times, over the course of the year. But, we'll talk about it again. I'll give you my thoughts on, if he should come back or not. So that'll be the second part of the show. Then in the third part of the show, we'll look at the Heisman and NFL MVP odds. So we'll go through that, see who's got the best odds right now to win both of those awards. And then in the final part of the show, we'll preview tonight's game between the Seahawks and the Cowboys. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about the Packers. So obviously, the Packers, they it's kind of been a roller coaster of a season for them. They started off good, then they had that stretch of games where they just did not play well. They looked like one of the worst teams in football. And now recently, they've started to get it going on offense. And Jordan Love has looked a lot better in recent weeks. They lost 4 in a row. So they started off the season 2-1. They beat the Bears. They lost by 1 to the Falcons, which I think they should have won that game. And the Saints game, they should have lost. So they should be 2-1 either way. In the beginning of the season. Then, the Lions on that Thursday night dominated them 34-20. Then they lost the Monday night game against the Raiders 17-13. Jordan Love throws that pick in the end zone to end the game. Did the same thing against the Broncos. Did the same thing against the Steelers too. They did lose by a couple of scores against the Vikings. They did beat the Rams without Matthew Stafford, 20-3. That was on November 5th. But the last 2 weeks, and I get it, it was against two defenses that aren't very good. The Chargers, they won 23-20, and the Lions in Detroit won 29-22. Now, in the Lions game, they did put up 20 points in the first quarter, but Jordan Love overall had a good day. He went 22 of 32, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Against the Chargers, he went 27 of 40, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions as well. But you know what? Honestly, you would take that because of how the Packers, were looking at certain points during the year. You really, would take anything. And, he has played well. And that could go a long way because now you start stringing together a couple of wins and, the players start believing in themselves. And, now they got a true test on Sunday night against Kansas City. And Kansas City's defense has really been the strength of the team this year. So, it's going to be interesting to see, how that game, plays out. Looking forward to it. Although the Packers' backfield is kind of banged up, both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are questionable going into the game. So if they both don't play, it's going to be Patrick Taylor who's going to be the lead back. And we'll see if they bring back James Robinson because, they signed him, then they put him on waivers, then they brought him back again, and then they waived him again. So maybe they bring him back, if both running backs aren't playing. I don't know. I feel bad for James Robinson because, I feel like he hasn't had a good luck recently, but who knows? But yeah, so I kind of wanted to look at, Jordan Love's stats and compare him to another quarterback who looks like right now is the favorite to win MVP. So we'll just get this out of the way for a second. So this is courtesy of fantasypros.com. So on the right side, you have Jordan Love stats, and on the left side is another quarterback. Now, I'm not going to play, guess who that quarterback is. I'm just going to tell you right now. It's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love's stats, at least, when it comes to, passing categories, are very similar. They got the same amount of interceptions. Jordan Love has one more touchdown pass. The yards per attempt are almost the same. Passing yards are almost the same. There's a little bit of a gap, when it comes to completion percentage. Jordan Love has more passing attempts. But what I will say, though, is Jalen Hurts does have a lot more rushing touchdowns. So that kind of, gives him, the edge there. But it's kind of funny because I saw this on social media and I was like, that's really interesting that, Jalen Hurts right now is supposedly the MVP favorite. But you look at, his stats compared to Jordan Love, at least, throwing the football, it's almost the same. But what separates them is, of course, Jalen Hurts, running the football. Obviously, he had the game winner on Sunday against the Bills. But I don't know. I just thought that was something interesting to take a look at. But this is big for Jordan Love. If he continues to play well, then the Packers are gonna continue to ride it with him. Because obviously the front office was talking about how this is these final games here it's huge for Jordan Love, and he's played better. And, the Packers, they looked good on Thanksgiving, again, against a bad defense. But, you see Christian Watson starting to get more involved in the offense. Jaden Reed has been a good rookie for them. This is a young team. So, obviously, you got to also look at it from the perspective that this team has to develop and grow. And it's a long season. And maybe they're starting to, put it together. But, like I said, it's going to be a true test on Sunday when this team takes on the Kansas City Chiefs. And we'll see how they stack up against them. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say the Packers are going to win. Right now, I kind of want to see what the injury report is like going into the game. But, the Packers right now, I think they're 6.5-point underdogs at home. I might want to take the points. I don't know. You hear me say that, you're probably like, all right, well, going to take Kansas City. But obviously, if Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are both out, because at least on Thanksgiving they had A.J. Dillon. Now, if they don't have both of them against Kansas City, I mean, they're going to kind of be, one-dimensional, and Jordan Love's going to have to throw it a ton of times. But we'll just have to wait and see. But, credit to the Packers for, stringing together some wins here. They actually, so take a look at their schedule here. So obviously they got Kansas City on Sunday night. And I think I did mention it, for this game, I do wish Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback going into this game because I would have loved to have seen these two guys go at it, Rodgers and Mahomes on Sunday night in Lambeau. But, I mean, obviously I went to the Jets. I bought tickets for the Jets-Chiefs game earlier in the year thinking I was going to get that. And nope, I got Zach Wilson's best game as a pro. At least there's that. So after Kansas City, they play the Giants. They're at home against Tampa, at the Panthers, at the Vikings, and then they're home against the Bears. So, there's a lot of winnable games on their schedule. There really is. They got, well, including the Chiefs game, they got 3 more home games, 3 more road games. So there's a balance there. And how the Vikings just played against the Bears. I mean, I think the Packers can win against the Vikings in Minnesota. And the Bears at home, I mean, they already beat them this year. I mean, that's a game that gets you into the playoffs. I mean, we'll see. Because right now, I mean, they're ahead of the Rams because they have the tiebreaker. Well, I mean, they have the same record, 5-6. The Saints are 5-6 as well. Vikings are 6-6. Also, you got to keep an eye on Seattle too, because Seattle plays tonight, and if they lose to the Cowboys, which I think they will, they're going to be 6-6. So all of a sudden, you can maybe jump over Minnesota and Seattle, with those wild card spots. So we'll see. It's things are definitely trending up for the Packers, which is good because listen, you had Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a long time, and this was his first full year as a starter, and it got off to a good start. Then there was a rocky couple of games in between that, and the last 2 games have been good. So I mean, if he goes out there and he plays well against the Chiefs, then you really got to be confident in the development of Jordan Love. And especially, from fantasy perspective, I have him in, my dynasty league. I'm hoping that, he, he's the guy. I hope he is. But we still got some games left. So, we'll see, how they play out. But like I said, there's a lot of winnable games on this schedule for the Packers. I think they definitely could maybe get to 9 wins. Is that enough to get you in? I mean, it might be. It might be. I think right now, like I said, I think the Chiefs. I mean, the Packers. I might take them with the points, but I think the Chiefs probably still win. But hey, I mean, it's gonna be a good game. December weather in Green Bay. Patrick Mahomes' first trip to Lambeau. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I hope it is a good game. Definitely. I mean, it's the last game of the day on Sunday, so obviously I'll be locked into it. It's actually gonna be like the first football Sunday I'll actually be home, because I've always been out, during football Sunday. So it's gonna be nice to actually just be home and watching the games. How it should be, but but yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Packers. Is this a team that can make the playoffs, or it's? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that they definitely will. I think they got a great shot. Because I mean, for me, I was like, oh well, it looks like Seattle and the Vikings are gonna, make it. But now you got the Packers playing better. You got the Rams playing a little bit better. The Rams getting Kyron Williams back was huge. I mean, he had a big game against the Cardinals on Sunday, and they've beaten the Seahawks twice this year. The second time they got a little bit lucky, but hey, they won. So, I mean, we could see the Vikings and Seattle, out of the playoff picture, and you could see, the Rams and the Packers, slide their way in. I don't know. It's too soon to tell. Like I said, we still got some weeks left before that. So, but you know what? At least, the Packers are, as the title of the show segment is, they're turning it around, and there's at least something to look forward to, with this team. So, yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about the Packers. So, we're actually going to talk about, in the next segment, the Packers' old QB. And that is Aaron Rodgers. So when we get back from our first break, we are going to talk about him, and I'll give you my thoughts on the recent news regarding him. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to discuss Aaron Rodgers being cleared to practice by the Jets. So Robert Saleh said he was cleared for functional football activity but not contact. So, yeah, he was throwing the football around. There were some videos out there of him throwing it. And, yeah, looks good. But is he going to play? I know we've done a segment on this before, but I don't think so. Now, me personally, I would love to see him play this year, even if the Jets are out of it, just to see him play. But I think for him and for the team, I think the best course of action is for him to just, sit out the rest of the year, even if he thinks he can play, and just wait till next year. Just get healthy for next year and go from there. Because, you go out there and, you get hurt. I think people are looking at, the Browns game as, a potential, return date. Because I think it was, he was looking at, a mid-December return. You play against the Browns. You go up against Myles Garrett and that defense. With how the offensive line is played, you might get hurt again. Don't risk it. Yeah, it's. Listen. I think if he came back and played and nothing happened, he was perfectly fine. I think. I know people will say, well, he's being selfish and I understand that. I get it, but I would be like, that's incredible. Even because I was looking at the what Saleh said, the quote that I said, before on ESPN. 11 weeks. The headline was 11 weeks after what happened to him, the first game of the season. It's incredible. 4 plays into the season and he was done, and now he's practicing. It's unreal. So if he does come back and play this year, I think we should be I don't want to. I was going to say celebrating it, but really, it would be unbelievable if he came back and played and he was fine. Now I don't really know. You don't know until he actually steps on the field and starts taking hits. Now, Rodgers has dealt with a lot of injuries over the course of his career. His collarbone injuries, and he's had some surgeries on his knees, I believe, too. So he's been banged up a lot. Now the last couple of seasons he's been relatively healthy. Really didn't miss any games other than when he had COVID. The one game that made him miss another opportunity of seeing him play against Patrick Mahomes. And that was actually Jordan Love's first start of his career. But, other than that, he was healthy for a while. And then, this injury happens. And, we didn't get this. We really, lost a season to watch him play. And obviously you don't want to, especially because now he's not as, he's getting older. He's going to be 40. Or is he already 40? 39, 40 years old. He's around there, and it's unfortunate because at some point he's going to hang it up. We'll see what happens next year. He's going to come back and play next year, but beyond that, who knows? But for the Jets, they got to they got to build an offensive line around him. That's what they have to do, because if he's not protected next year, it's going to be the same thing. He's going to get hurt again. And that's why, you look at, what Tampa Bay did when they got Brady. They drafted a lineman. They signed some guys too. They protected Brady. That offensive line the first 2 years in Tampa was very good. It was that final year where it wasn't. And look at, the Bucs and how they were last year. They went 8-9. They drafted Tristan Wirfs. They signed Ryan Jensen. The offensive line was solid. With the Jets, I was worried. we were relying on Mekhi Becton trying to come back because he's a guy that's always been banged up. Vera Tucker, who's, a good player on the offensive line. He's been hurt the last 2 years now, getting season-ending injuries in Denver back-to-back years, which is crazy. I was definitely worried about this offensive line going into the season. And 4 plays into the Jets season, on offense, Rodgers got hurt. And that's really the main thing, is they have to prioritize fixing that. Now, they might have a top 10 pick this year because of how they've been playing as of late. Tim Boyle was not any better than Zach Wilson on Black Friday. At least for Zach Wilson, he was not a part of the Hail Mary that was returned for a touchdown. I still think the butt fumble was the worst of the two, just because of how the play itself and how it played out. I know some people have different opinions of the importance of it. Because the Jets still technically could have did something this year. They were already on their way to getting blown out by the Patriots. At least that's what I heard on the radio here in New York. And I understand that. I just think the butt fumble it's iconic, and I don't think anything is gonna ever surpass it. But that's just me. I mean, I'm a Giant fan saying that. So the Jets. It's unfortunate what happened this year. They didn't really, have a good contingency plan in case Rodgers did get hurt. They just were like, all right, well, we're gonna throw Zach back in, and hopefully he is able to win us some games, and it just didn't happen. But it does go to show you, though, that the Jets have more than just a quarterback problem. There's other problems. I mean, they don't really have a lot of weapons outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Like I keep saying, the offensive line, not good. And now you start seeing the defense is starting to, give up. So there's a lot of issues with the Jets, and and also you got to look at the play calling and the head coach. It's not good. It's not good. But look, I would love to see Rodgers come back and play, but I think especially because with him being older now, it's just not worth it. It really isn't worth it. I mean, are the Jets going to go on a run? I mean, there's really no indication of that. I mean, these last couple of games have been brutal to watch. They got stomped by the Bills. I mean, they did get 3 turnovers against the Dolphins, but you still lost by a few scores. I mean, they basically, and like I said, the defense gave up. I mean, Mostert had 2 rushing touchdowns. It was like nobody was on the field to tackle him. So, I mean, I thought, when they beat the Eagles, I was like, okay, this team could definitely, keep their record respectable until maybe Rodgers does come back. But not really. They haven't really run the football effectively, because that's what I said. I'm like, as long as they can run the ball, play mistake-free football, and their defense, keeps it close, they're going to win games. But they just really have not done that. They haven't. And again, it's more than just a quarterback problem. I think Trevor Siemian should be the starter instead of Tim Boyle, but that's just me. What do I know? But yeah, Tim Boyle, he's not it either. But yeah, I mean, the Jets have had a weird year. So they won the opening game against Buffalo, then they lost 3 in a row. Then they won 3 in a row, and now they've lost 4 in a row. I mean, I think they're due for a win at some point. I mean, I keep picking them every single week, except against the Bills. I picked them against the Chargers. I picked them against the Raiders. I picked them against the Dolphins too, because they were getting a lot of points. And yeah, I mean, it was close after the pick 6, but then they threw a pick 6. So I don't know. I mean, they play the Falcons on Sunday. That's a team that has a quarterback issue as well. So maybe you force some turnovers there. Get good field position. But I don't know. I think at this point it's kind of too little, too late. Um, you know. I mean, I'm at least happy knowing that Aaron Rodgers is gonna come back next year. At least try to come back next year. Because I really, for me, I really just do not want him to go out, this way. I don't. I want him to at least go out, have a good year, and see what happens. You get to the playoffs and you go from there. Because I really wanted to see what he was going to do with the Jets. And the Jets could be trying to bring in some of his other friends as well. Devontae Adams, they're trying to get, and maybe David Bakhtiari as well. See, those guys would have an impact if you bring them in. Because, you brought in Randall Cobb. I mean, Randall Cobb's not what he used to be. Doesn't really play. Dalvin Cook has been a disaster. When bringing him in. You thought it was going to be a nice, 1-2 combination between him and Breece Hall, but really hasn't. So we'll see. We'll see what the Jets do. I did talk about how I think I did, bring it up this week. All three guys are coming back. Hackett, Saleh, and Joe Douglas. They all seem to be coming back. So, we'll see. But yeah, for me, like I said, I think Rodgers, wait till next year. But if you do play and you stay healthy, I'm okay with that too. Just to at least see what he looks like in a Jets uniform. I mean, we really only got him. I watched him, in the preseason game against the Giants. He threw the touchdown to Garrett Wilson, and then you saw him running with the flag, on September 11th, which was awesome. And then everything just, did a complete 180 on us when he got hurt. And I was literally standing right over there in this room just beside myself because I'm like, I can't believe this is happening right now. And hopefully it doesn't happen again when he does come back. So we're going to take our second break of the show. When we come back, we'll talk about the Heisman and the NFL MVP odds. We'll go through both of those, give you my thoughts on that. Before I get into that, or before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys, once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. Again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. But yeah, so that's the Aaron Rodgers stuff for today. Let me know what you guys think. Is Aaron Rodgers going to play this year, or is he gonna? We're gonna have to wait till next year. I think most people are in agreement that it's gonna be next year, but there's some people that probably think he should still play if he's cleared to, even if the Jets are completely out of it. But yeah, so that's what we. So that's all the Aaron Rodgers stuff. And like I said, when we come back from our second break, we will go over the Heisman and the NFL MVP odds. We'll talk about that when we come back from our second break. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Heisman Trophy and the NFL MVP odds. And we'll go over them right now. So I went on I think it's vegasodds.com, and if I could pull it up here. So Yeah, so VegasInsider.com. So this kind of has like all of like the betting websites and like with all the players that have like the best odds to win both awards. So like we'll go through like the Heisman Trophy first. So you got Bo Nix, who's right now has the best odds to win the Heisman at this point. Then you got Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe of Alabama. Like I said, Carson Beck, Georgia. Well, actually, Michael Penix and Bo Nix are going to be playing each other tomorrow night. Washington and Oregon will be playing each other. And they did already play this year a good game. That was. So, looking forward to that. I know, some of my friends want to go and watch that tomorrow. Washington 12-0 on the season. Oregon's 11-1. But yeah, these are the odds right here, like I just said. So I kind of just want to like go through the stats of the players that are up here. So for Bo Nix, I haven't honestly, I'll be honest, I really have not looked at like all of their stats collectively. This is like the first time I'm really looking at them. So Bo Nix on the season is 3,900 yards passing, 37 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, and he has a QB rating of 189.8. So that is really, I mean, again, like I think I talked about this earlier in the week, but it's just like the game is so much different, from this game compared to the NFL. But yeah, so right now he's leading, and I mean, you look at his stats. I mean, can't really argue with that. Then we look at Michael Penix's stats on the season. So he's got 3,899 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 162.9 QB rating. And I did go over, their stats when I went over the stats leaders yesterday. Now that I remember, but So right now, and like I just said, those two guys will be going at it on tomorrow. So that'll be fun to watch. So then we look at the other quarterbacks here. I'm just looking at. I pulled up the Georgia-Alabama game. So Jalen Milroe. So he's got 2,500 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So yeah, he's probably not really in contention to win it. But again, his odds are up here. I mean, he'd have to really just. It'd be a miracle if he did win it at this point. And then for Carson Beck, I mean, he's kind of in the same boat. 3,400 yards, almost 3,500 yards passing, 3,495, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on the season. And then let's see if I can pull up Jaden Daniels' stats here for LSU. Because I did go over them. Like I said, I did go over it yesterday. So his stats currently, so he has 3,800 yards passing, 40 touchdowns to 4 picks. I'm looking it up on ESPN. So his QB rating is 208.0. Yeah, so I did talk about this yesterday. His QBR is 95.6, which is actually first. So yeah, I mean, based off of what you see here, and the stats I just went over, it's probably going to be between Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels as the for the Heisman. So and I like how it has like all the the odds for all the betting sites here, but yeah. So let me know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to win the Heisman? I mean, it's. Right now, it looks like it's going to be, the two guys at the top, for it. So, so that's for college football. Now, we're going to go into the NFL now. So, let's pull that up. So, now this is for the NFL. So, you got Jalen Hurts, who's got the best odds. Then you got Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, and Tua Tagovailoa. I'll be honest. I've had these conversations with my friends, a couple of times recently. And this is like a year where it's like I really don't know who's going to win MVP. I really have no idea. Jalen Hurts right now has, the best odds at the moment. Now, there's still time for, things to change, but I feel like this could be a year where like a non-QB wins this award. Because we talked about Myles Garrett and the kind of season that he has had. Tyreek Hill maybe going for 2,000 yards. I feel like if Tyreek Hill gets 2,000 yards, I feel like he should win MVP. I would not be against that. And, going back to what I talked about, in the first part of the show, and again, he had a lot more rushing touchdowns, but Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts, like, passing stats were, like, the same. And another thing that people say is a lot of those rushing touchdowns are from them doing the tush push at the 1-yard line. So, now, again, Jalen Hurts has been great this year. The turnovers, that's a little bit of a concern there, but you know what? He's been good. He's on a team right now that's, the best team in football at the moment. I think right now, I don't know. For me, it's like one of those years where it's like you really just don't know. You don't know. I think there's a clearer picture for like the Heisman. Again, I'm not a college football expert. I'm not going to sit here and say I am, but it looks like there's more of a clearer picture on who's going to win that as opposed to who's going to win NFL MVP. Because I don't think Mahomes is going to win it unless he goes off, the last 5 games here that we have left, right? 5 games. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Now I got to do math. I think it's 6 games. Dak Prescott's been playing really well lately. I feel like he's only going to trend up when it comes to the MVP. Tua's been solid, and Lamar's been solid as well. But, there's inconsistencies with those two guys. Mahomes and his team and how they've been struggling, offensively with the drops too. Guys are still dropping passes. I don't know. I feel like right now, and, as a Giant fan, I don't like saying it, but I feel like Dak Prescott right now is playing, the best out of the QBs here. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Jalen Hurts is winning more games, of course. Like, they got a better record, and, they beat Dak, but the Cowboys could have very easily won that game against the Eagles a couple weeks ago. So I don't know. It's one of those years where I just really you really don't know. Like last year, you kind of had a good idea. You're like Mahomes won it. The year before the previous 2 years, Rodgers won it. Although 2021, Tom Brady could have won it too because Brady had a good year in 2021. It's this year it's tough. But right now, Jalen Hurts has the best odds. But I don't know. I feel like I said, if Tyreek Hill he gets over 2,000 yards, I mean, I think you got to give it to him. But unfortunately when it comes to the MVP, it's a quarterback award. That's really who wins it. Now, they might have to change it where, it's a different kind of award. But, you don't really see, other position players winning this award. I mean, you saw Adrian Peterson win it, back in 2012. But you don't really see other players, win this award that's not a quarterback. You go back to 2014, J.J. Watt had that really good season, but Aaron Rodgers beat him out for MVP that year. And a lot of people said it should have been, did I say T.J. Watt or J.J. Watt? I don't even remember. I meant to say J.J. Watt. I feel like I said T.J. I'll have to, when I go back and watch when I watch this part, I'll have to. I don't even remember, but whatever. J.J. Watt, 2014, he had that great year. And Rodgers, beat him out in 2014. Yeah, I mean it's hard when it's you're going up against a quarterback for MVP, but I feel like this is a year where you just really don't know. But I mean, there's still time left. So, anything's possible. I mean, somebody can go off these last, few weeks, and then their odds can improve. But right now, Jalen Hurts has the best odds to win MVP. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it when looking at the Heisman and the NFL MVP odds. Like I said, with the Heisman, there's more of a clearer picture as to who is going to win that award, based off of the betting odds. When it comes to the NFL, it's just I don't really know. Like for me, I don't. I might be different for other people. Other people might have a different perspective on it, but at least like for me, when it comes to the NFL, it's like, yeah, Jalen Hurts right now has the best odds, but is he really like the clear-cut favorite to win MVP? I don't really know. But I just still can't get over, how his numbers are similar to Jordan Love. And you don't see Jordan Love on that list for MVP. You don't. But it's because of all those rushing touchdowns that come off of the tush push. But like I said, there's still time left. A lot of big games this weekend, and we'll get into them, of course, more so tomorrow, with the bowl games, the championship games in conferences, in college football, and then of course, you got the NFC Championship rematch on Sunday between the Eagles and the Niners. That's going to get its own segment. So, yeah, I mean, sorry, trying to hold back a sneeze here. That of course that's going to happen at least once on the show. But hey, we were able to get through that. But yeah, like NFC Championship rematch going to get its own segment tomorrow just because of how massive the game is. Really looking forward to that game. That's hopefully going to be the game of the year, which we just saw the game of the year basically, between the Bills and the Eagles last Sunday. Eagles have really had to go through a gauntlet, the last couple of weeks. But you know what? They've won. They came back against the Chiefs. They came back against the Bills. Now, I know the Bills' record is not what it usually is in years past, but still got to respect the Bills as a team with the guys that they have over there. Still got to play the Cowboys one more time. You got the Niners. I know they play in Seattle, which is a tough place to play, but I think they should still win that game. Yeah, they got a lot of they had some tough games on their schedule, but so far they've delivered. It wasn't pretty at times, but a win is a win. That's how you got to look at it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it with this segment here. So with that, we're going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the Eagles' division rival, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. And they will be taking on the Seattle Seahawks tonight in Jerry World. So we will preview that as the final segment of the show. So, one more time, stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to preview tonight's game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Dallas Cowboys. So obviously the Cowboys are coming off, well, both teams are coming off of playing on Thanksgiving, but the Cowboys are coming off of a big win against the Commanders. Seattle coming off of a blowout loss to the 49ers. Listen, the line is big. It went down to 8. Now it's back up to, I think it's back up to 9, at least looking at CBS. Listen, it's a lot of points. I'm not going to make the same mistake I made last week. And, I'm annoyed at myself because I've kept saying this year, Dallas, they blow people out at home. They do. And I went against that and took Washington, which I shouldn't have done. I know I did pick the Jets earlier in the year when they played them, and that was a mistake too. But I'm not going to make the same mistake again. Seattle's coming in a little banged up. Kenneth Walker is doubtful for this game, so it's going to be Zach Charbonnet who's going to be the lead back again. He really didn't do much against the Niners, and kind of expect more of the same tonight against the Cowboys. Geno Smith, he got banged up a couple weeks ago. Really didn't play well against the 49ers on Thursday. I think Dallas should win by, I think Dallas wins and covers the number. Again, I wouldn't be surprised with anything that may happen in this game tonight. I've seen it all. But I think the Cowboys at home, that's one thing that I shouldn't go against, because I have gone against it a couple of times and it's backfired. Seattle is the best team that they've faced at home so far, which is not really saying much. When you look at the Commanders, the Patriots, the Jets, the Giants, I guess maybe you could say the Rams, because the Rams have beaten the Seahawks twice. I mean, Dallas dropped 43 points against them earlier in the season. So, yeah, I don't think Seattle's gonna be able to keep up with with Dallas. I mean, Dak Prescott's been playing really well as of late. Right now, I mean, he's almost got 3,000 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The big thing too is I think Tony Pollard has started to get it going a little bit. He's had a touchdown in the last 2 games. He had a 27-yard run against Washington last week, which was his longest run of the game. He was averaging 6.1 yards per attempt last week. So, it's been going up the last couple of weeks, so maybe, he's starting to get his legs underneath him. CeeDee Lamb has been great this year. If we look at the league rankings for both teams, so, the Cowboys are 5th when it comes to passing yards per game. Seattle is 15th. Rushing yards per game, the Cowboys are 13th. The Seahawks are 26th. And then points per game, Cowboys are actually number 1 in the league, and the Seahawks are 18th. So Cowboys dominate the Seahawks when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. Then on the defensive side of the ball, Cowboys are 2nd against the pass. Seahawks are 24th. And the way Dak Prescott's been playing and how him and his receivers have been on point as of late, I think that's going to continue tonight. Cowboys are 13th against the run. Seahawks are 21st. And then points allowed, the Cowboys are 4th and the Seahawks are 22nd. So looking at that alone, I mean, the Cowboys are clearly the better team here. I think they should win by at least 10. I'm going to take them. And whatever happens tonight happens. But you know what? I can't do it. After what happened last week, now, you know what's going to happen? Seattle's going to, cover somehow. But I can't take Seattle. I can't do it. I can't do it. But now, when it comes to the Cowboys, how do I see them, stacking up against the rest of the teams in the NFC? I did mention I think they're number 3 in the NFC. I know earlier in the year I had the Lions over them, but the way the Lions defense has been playing and Jared Goff and how he's been turning the ball over, I can't do that now. I think when these two teams play against each other later in the year, I think Dallas is going to win. So I right now I would put Dallas ahead of Detroit. So Detroit right now is at number 4. And again, I mean, the Lions, they have a lot of talent on their team, and they could, go into Dallas, because I'm pretty sure this game is in Dallas, and they could win, and then it's like, okay, all right. But right now, I just don't see that happening. But I still look at the Eagles and the Niners as the two teams, as the top 2 teams. I'm not going to put Dallas in the same category as them. Now, it also depends on matchups, too. They match up better against Philadelphia than they do against the 49ers. They could have very easily beat the Eagles this year. I mean, there are a few games where the Eagles could have easily lost. Like, they could have lost to the Chiefs, they could have lost to Dallas, they could have lost to Buffalo, but they won all those games. And their only loss of the season is against the Jets, which they should have won that game if Hurts doesn't throw that pass. But that's the NFL for you. You just have no idea what is going to happen week to week. And the Jets beating the Eagles as their only loss is a prime example of that. But Dallas, I think, is a good team. And I think this team can go to the Super Bowl. I think they definitely can. But I got to see it to believe it. That's where I'm at. Because this team, every year, for as long as I've been alive, because I never saw the Cowboys, and all their champion, the good Cowboys from all those years ago, with Michael Irving and Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith. I didn't see that. These Cowboys right here are the only Cowboys that I know, and that is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations every year. They get to the playoffs and they don't do anything. They maybe win a playoff game, but then they don't get past the second round. And you know who you could relate that to? The baseball team that I root for that is displayed all over my room, and that is the New York Yankees. Because Yankees were great in the 90s. You get to the 2000s, yeah, not so much. But at least with the Yankees, they've won in the 2000s. They won in 2009. And they've made it back to the World Series in 2003 and 2001. They won in 2000. Cowboys, you can't say that about them. They have not made it back. Well, now with the Yankees, yeah, it's been a while. But it's been even longer for the Cowboys. So, and the Yankees have made it to championship series. The Cowboys have not made it to the NFC Championship game since I've been alive. It hasn't happened. So I got to see it to believe it. Now, the way Dak Prescott has been playing, the running game has gotten it going. The defense is still forcing turnovers. This team could do it. I said they could do it last year too. Believe me, I was nervous going in that playoff game against the Niners. I was like, the Cowboys can win this game, and they could have. They definitely had their chances, but Dak Prescott turned the ball over, and the 49ers did just enough offensively to win that game, because that final score was 19-12. It was not a high-scoring game at all. But time will tell. Time will tell. The NFC is a weak conference, and the Cowboys can take advantage of that. There's no more Aaron Rodgers. There's no more Drew Brees. There's no more Tom Brady with the Bucs, even though that was a short, time. No more Russell Wilson in Seattle, even though you're playing Seattle tonight. And Seattle made the playoffs last year, even with Geno Smith at quarterback. Rams are weaker. The Cardinals, they were a playoff team a couple years ago. They're bad. Well, obviously part of that has to do with Kyler being hurt this year, but still, it's a weaker conference. It's a weaker conference. That's really what I'm trying to say. So they could take advantage of that. If the Eagles and the 49ers get upset in the playoffs and the Cowboys avoid playing them, Cowboys can find themselves in the Super Bowl, or at least find themselves in an NFC Championship game. But like I said, only time will tell. But this, you know what? But for Seattle, because we talked about the Cowboys more in this segment, this is a big game for Seattle. I don't think they're going to win it. Like I said, I got the Cowboys winning and covering. But doesn't mean it's not a big game for them because they have not been playing well as of late. They've lost back-to-back games to divisional opponents. Geno Smith hasn't been playing great as of late. You got to find a way to win this game tonight because, you got the Rams behind you. You got, the Packers. They're knocking on the door as well, like I talked about earlier in the show. If you're not too careful, you're going to find yourself on the outside looking in. The Geno Smith story was nice, but like I've been saying recently, they're not going to go very far with Geno Smith, the quarterback, when it comes to the playoffs. They're just not. He still has a place in this league. He could still, he's been okay as a starter recently, but I don't look at him as somebody that is going to propel you to where you want to go. It's just not going to happen. But I think, credit to him. It's been a long road for him, and he was able to be the starter last year, and lead Seattle to the playoffs, which is something that no one really expected. People expected them to be one of the worst teams in the league, and that was just far from it. And right now they're in a playoff spot again. But he's not a guy that is going to lead you to a Super Bowl. He's not. So Seattle's going to have to upgrade a quarterback at some point. So, but they got to find a way to win this game tonight. It's going to be really tough because Dallas has been so good at home. And Seattle's not coming in, hot. They're coming in, they're coming in flat. They're struggling, and Dallas could definitely take advantage of that. And this game could get ugly very quick. Because Dallas could, you saw on Thanksgiving, that fourth quarter, they outscored Washington 25-0. Did I say first quarter? Fourth quarter? 25-0 in that fourth quarter. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen tonight, but, Seattle turns the ball over, gives the Cowboys short field in any way. Could very well find yourself in that same situation that Washington was in on Thanksgiving. So, and listen, I went over the league rankings for both teams. Yeah, it's might be a mismatch tonight, but we'll see. We'll see. Week 13, we're moving right along. Before you know it, college football is going to be over, before the NFL is. But, we're closer. Like I said, earlier in the week, I think we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. And it's just going to get nuts at the end because there's still a lot of playoff spots that are up for grabs. I had the same conversation, doing the baseball show, talking about the wild card situation there. It's kind of the same here, in both conferences. You just don't really know. Anything can change. But that's it for the show today. Tomorrow, speaking of baseball, we got the doubleheader tomorrow. We got football, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and then we got the baseball show at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, so make sure to tune in for those. I'm going to be working on getting yesterday's show, reposted, the 4 parts. So in case you missed anything, you'll be able to just, check out each individual segment on its own. Of course, the live stream is up as well. So if you just want to go in and do that, you can as well. Got shorts coming out today throughout the day, so make sure to, be on the lookout for those and leave a comment on them. And, that's really it. So that's all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for watching. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.